Our first speaker today is Tim Disney. Tim Disney is an artist, tech investor, and a philanthropist. Tim is here to talk about kindness as a form of enlightened self-improvement. Tim joins us from LA. Tim, over to you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you. I'm in my kitchen in Los Angeles, California. It's the middle of the night, and I'm honored to be asked to be part of this amazing convocation. Mahima was right that I'm not an expert in kindness. I don't know that I am any more or less kind than anybody else, but I was quite intrigued by the topic and the challenge of talking about this. If I think about what kindness is, I can say I don't honestly know. It might be an evolutionary behavioral strategy that the human species use to cooperate with each other. It might be a virtue in the moralistic sense, in some kind of vague moralistic way. It might be a selfish strategy we use to get advantages over other people, or it might be a weakness. I don't know. I looked up the definition, and I found a bunch of definitions, but they were all quite similar. Basically, here's one. The quality of being friendly, generous, and considerate. Okay, that sounds about right. I suppose a synonym would be nice. He's a nice person. She's a nice person. She does kind things. He was kind to offer his help or something like that. We use those kind of synonymously, but kind is based on the word, kindness is based on the word kind, which has another meaning, which is something about a type of thing or a sort of thing or a category of thing. And I think that spins it in another direction. But I want to get back to that a little bit later, because I'm not an expert in linguistics or semiotics or biology or behavioral psychology or any of those things. But I do have some experience with this, which comes from the fact that I am a recovering addict. And I only tell you that because of my experience with that forced me into a relationship with kindness that I don't think I would have experienced other than that. You know, addiction in its many forms, alcoholism, drug addiction, the eating, debt, gambling, there are many forms of it. We see a lot of it in our modern contemporary culture. It used to be a taboo topic, but I think we see it a lot in movies and television. It's almost in vogue in a way, but I can say for myself and for the people I know who also suffer from this, the general incomprehension about it remains as deep as it ever has. Unless you have experienced this yourself, it's very difficult to explain to someone else what the phenomenon is all about. The best way that I can describe it is tell you what you might consider to be a silly story about this dog I had as a child. So bear with me as I tell you the story. But we had this dog. It was a purebred German Shepherd that just had nothing but problems and many trips to the veterinarian, all kinds of troubles, lots of experiments with different treatments. And in the end, the veterinarian told us the dog is allergic to itself. It is allergic to itself. And there is nothing that I can do about that, but I can prescribe cortisone, which will kind of treat the symptoms, not the cause. It's not curable, but I can give it cortisone, which will alleviate the symptoms, at least temporarily. The problem is that the dog will become more and more tolerant to the cortisone. You'll have to give it more and more cortisone. And the side effects of the cortisone will become worse and worse and worse. And eventually the dog will die a miserable death. And that's in fact what happened. We had this dog for several years. We gave it increasing amounts of this cortisone, which had all sorts of terrible side effects. And, it was a terrible thing. And that's essentially what the experience of alcoholism or addiction has been for me. Like the experience of being me from my earliest memory was just intolerable. Like I just felt like I was not part of the world that everybody else was a part of. I watched people having conversations and friendships and having experiences, and I just was absolutely mystified how they did all those things. How did they do that? Did they get an instruction book that I'd never received? It was the feeling that I had. And there's just a deep loneliness that goes with that, and a feeling of being separate and apart from everyone else. I don't know where that comes from, why that is. Maybe that's common to all people. Maybe all people feel that more or less. Maybe that's just that soul sickness is the human condition. I don't really know. But if you're an addict like me, there's a terrible consequence to that, because based on that feeling, as a teenager, I discovered drugs and alcohol, and it really helped me. It like the cortisone did for my dog, it treated the symptoms. It didn't treat the cause, but it made the symptoms bearable, at least temporarily and partially. And so I adopted that as a coping strategy in my life. And I think it really saved me as a teenager. Without it, I'm not sure I would have made it. It got me through a lot of difficult times. I was clever, and I was vigilant, and I watched other people and how they were getting through the world, and I mimicked that. I learned how to present myself to the world, and I guess I had success in doing that. I went to college, I had a few careers, I got married, I had kids. And I won't say that I never had any moments of satisfaction and happiness, because I certainly did. But always fleeting, always temporary, and always on top of this underlying feeling of apartness and discomfort that I had to treat with drugs and alcohol. So, that's the best way that I can describe what that experience is all about. And for me, like with everyone who suffers from this, it came to its end, where I was either going to change or die. That's the choice that I faced. And I made the decision that that it would be better for my kids if I wasn't around. I decided that I was going to try to kill myself. And I made a half-hearted attempt to do that. And then something changed for me. And this is the miracle of it, that I cannot explain. And I reached a point, which I suppose we all have to reach, where the fear of change was outweighed by the discomfort and the pain of remaining the same. That is the moment of change that it's hard to know how to muster, to manufacture for oneself. But when that moment came for me, my life was deflected off onto another path. And I fell in with some other people who suffer from the same affliction. And that was a revelation for me, because I discovered really for the first time that there were other people who had felt the same things that I had felt, experienced the same things, and had in fact survived it. It really changed my world, because I, for the first time in my life, didn't feel completely alone anymore. And they explained to me what they had done and how they had treated this affliction. And it involves kindness of a sort. So what I learned, looking at myself through their eyes, was that I was riddled with fears and resentments, that I was dominated by fear. I didn't know that. I didn't know that that's what I was experiencing. I thought of myself as a fearless person. I was constantly throwing myself into challenging situations and took a lot of pride in that. But the truth was that I was always trying to wrest satisfaction out of the world by manipulating people and situations into reflecting back to me what I wanted to believe about myself. And it was a fool's game, and it was impossible. People don't want to be manipulated into reflecting back to you what you want to believe about themselves. They just want to do what they want to do, and so I had to give that up. And I undertook a program, which I continue to this day, of writing down these things that have been acting on me, informing my behavior, informing my my dysfunctional behavior, and writing it down on a piece of paper and reading it to someone else. And there's something really significant about that act. And I encourage you to consider this, that what I have been suffering from, and I think maybe what we all suffer from in our different ways, are a mental illness combined with a spiritual affliction. And when I can't solve that problem in myself with my own thoughts, because it manifests as my thoughts. You know, as Einstein said, the mind that creates the problem cannot solve it. So when I undertake this exercise of writing down the people that I resent, however ridiculous that might be, righteous or ridiculous, it doesn't matter. Its effect is the same on me, and my fears, and I put them on a piece of paper, they become separate from me. They become an object that I can look at, and I can see the madness of them. And the other person, the other sane adult that I involve in this, can agree with me. Yes, that stuff is crazy. You don't want to act on that. You don't want to have that informing your decision making and affecting you on a daily basis. And so I do that, and then I ask to be relieved of those things. And this process is extremely powerful. And I have gotten immense relief from doing that. It's not permanent relief. It's not absolute, but it works. And there is the opportunity is always there for me to continue that process as needed, as things come up, as situations become difficult to handle. Before I need to make an important decision, I do this because I don't want to make a decision based out of fear or resentment. So I try to identify what those things are in me, and I set them aside. And this has really changed my life. And I could not have experienced this. I would not have come to this realization or this other path had it not been for other people. I couldn't do it by myself. I had to do it. There had to be messengers to bring this news to me. And I have the opportunity now to deliver that message to other people who need to hear it, who want to hear it. So with that process at work, I have the opportunity to go into every day and every situation, asking myself how I can be of loving service to the other people that I'm dealing with. And that is a framework for living, which is so much more satisfying than the selfish one that I was engaged in before. Now, I want to point out that all of this is aspirational. I'm a flawed human being like any other. I am still want to get the things that I want to get. I have ego. I want other people's high opinion of me. I'm not free of those things. No one is. But I have a process that mitigates that in me, that creates a mechanism that can see that stuff when it begins to take over me and set it aside and redirects me back onto this other path. And what's interesting about it is that this method of treating addiction is very similar to ideas that exist in many spiritual traditions around the world. They really are, in a way, a synthesis of a lot of things, a grab bag of ideas that were culled from a whole lot of different traditions. So there's nothing original about this. It's not unique to this path. It's available in all different forms, and available to anybody who wants to walk a path of that sort. So, that brings me back to the word kindness, and what that means. So, I was literally dying of this soul sickness that I described to you, and I've had relief from that because of this experience with the idea of kindness. So that's why I said it, described it as enlightened self-interest, because I'm not trying to treat other people with kindness because I'm a nice guy or because I'm a good guy. I'm doing it literally because I don't want to die, because I worry that if I were to behave in ways that filled me with shame, if I were acting in ways that were at odds with my own values, that would induce shame and guilt and discomfort, that would put me at risk of drinking again. So for me, it's a matter of life and death. I think for most people, it isn't that. I know a lot of people who are generally unhappy most of the time, and they have not reached that point where the fear of change finally is outweighed by the discomfort of remaining the same. They just live in that place of low-grade discomfort all the time. And I wish for them a life crisis that would force upon them this decision that was forced upon me by my circumstances. But it's not something that I can decide for them. And I'm just immensely grateful that I experienced that miracle. So kindness, going back to the idea of what the word means, if we think about that second definition, that would imply that if I am being kind to you, I am not just being nice, I am affiliating myself with you. I am saying we are the same kind of person. We are two of a kind. I am according you equal respect and dignity, and I'm expecting from you equal respect and dignity. I think that's what kindness is. This is where I think we get into the fallacy of kindness as a weakness. Maybe niceness is a weakness. If I am being nice so that you will like me, I think I am putting myself in a position of risk vis-a-vis you. If I'm being kind to you, I'm treating you as an equal, and I'm expecting you to treat me as an equal. So I think I'm safe and protected in that position. So maybe a better synonym for kindness is not niceness, but maybe it's love and humility. And another thing to consider, I think, would be to think about kindness as a verb rather than a state of being or an ephemeral feeling. It's not a thing that descends on me, that's outside of my control. Kindness is a commitment to behaving in a kind way over time, even when I don't feel like it. And that I believe that about love as well. Love is a good way to think of love is to think of it as a commitment to act in a loving way over time to others and to oneself. Likewise with kindness. So for me, those are definitions and ideas that are practical, that help me make decisions on a daily basis. I don't always have the strength or the courage to act on those things. There are times, because I'm a flawed human being, where the opportunity to behave in a kind way presents itself, and I don't take it because I am too in the grip of resentment or fear or whatever it might be. I had a situation just over the last few weeks, a work situation with a serious problem person, like a difficult person who has made my life very difficult over the last few years. One of those relationships I would never have chosen was forced into in a work context, and I've had to deal with this person for a long time. And many times over the last few years, revenge fantasies gripped me, like how can I undo this person? How can I hurt her, in some way, embarrass her? And, I never did that. I never did that. I just didn't do anything. And then recently, she took some actions, not towards me, but towards some other people that were really inappropriate and out of bounds. And it fell to me to do something about that. And so I had to act on that. I had to act on that. And I did that. And I did that based on the principle of what was going on, not on a personal feeling. So in the end, the situation resolved itself, but not out of spite or fear. It came out of circumstances. So in that case, I think that I acted in a kind way to her, even though I don't believe, she sees it that way, because I accorded her the respect that everybody deserves. She put herself in a situation. She agreed to a code of behavior. She violated the code of behavior, and I held her accountable for that. So I think that's an example of what one might call humility. We often confuse the words humility and humiliation. They're not the same at all. I think humility is right sizing, and I think that's what kindness is as well. So I see that I still have a few minutes to go, and I just wanted to leave with one last thing here. So I'm going to end a few minutes early. That if you're interested in the English root word of kindness, would be kin, which means innate character, form, or condition, or natural order. And I thought that was a really, really interesting root to consider as well, that kindness is the natural order. It's what makes us human. It's what allows us to be the conduit of better things to other people. And the way to get access to kindness is to clear away the things that block that in us, which are our fears and worries for ourselves. When I did this work to identify all the fears and resentments I had in myself, it really, there were 10,000 of these things. But in the end, they're really, two things. There's the fear that I'm not going to get what I need, or the fear that something is going to be taken away from me. And when I looked at just about everything, that's what it all comes down to. And those are essentially fantasies, because we, as long as our basic physical needs are met, if we have a place to sleep and something to eat, we have everything we need. We have all the tools we need to live and thrive, and to be of loving service to other people. And so kindness was my path out of the pit of addiction. And I think that it can be a tool that you can use for your benefit as well. So thank you.
All right, Tim, we have time for a couple of questions, if you don't mind taking them.
Absolutely, thank you.
The first question, being born with a famous surname, how much pressure did that put on you?
I think that has been a stressor in my life. I mean, it's somebody said it's like being named Tim Coca-Cola. I mean, it's a brand name of immense size, and so it's the first thing that everybody notices about me. And I think I had a lot of resentments about that. I certainly got many privileges from that, for which I'm grateful. But I would have liked to have been a little more anonymous, and not have to answer everybody's questions every time I say my name or use my credit card or something like that. But on the whole, it's something to be proud of and grateful for.
When you meet an addict today, how do you deal with that addict?
I think fellow addicts, we all feel ourselves to be survivors of a shipwreck, like we're in a lifeboat. The ship sank, and we were able to get into the lifeboat, and we have a certain secret language and camaraderie that we share for having endured the same experience.
We have one question from an audience member. Okay, interesting question. Do you miss the old you? I'm guessing not.
Yes and no. I will say I had a lot of fun in certain ways, or fun isn't really the right word. Giddy hilarity, more like it. But no, I wouldn't go back. No. I wish I was younger, if that's what you mean.
We all do that. We all do, Tim. We all do. Okay, final question from Dr. Sujata. What's the difference between being kind and being forgiving?
That's a good question. The concept of forgiveness, I think, is much more vexing than the concept of kindness. I struggle with that one myself, what it is to forgive. Not sure that I believe that that's possible in the facile way that people speak about it. There's a concept in recovery about making amends, which is different than either apologizing or asking for forgiveness. I mean, it's a kind of a crazy concept that if I stole money from you, that I would then go and ask your forgiveness. Like, I just took your money and now I want you to give me forgiveness. Mm-hmm. That's weird. The appropriate response to an offense like that is to fix it, to remedy the harm. Mm-hmm. And if I stole $100 from you, I should give you $100 back plus some interest for, the time, and then not ask you for anything else. Mm-hmm. The forgiveness would be on your side and your problem to solve. In that case, I think the idea of forgiveness goes hand in hand with the idea of these terrible resentments that cause so much trouble to people. And so it would be super important for me if someone had harmed me and I feel like I would like to forgive them, I have to clear away all the stuff inside me. I can't just say I forgive you and believe that something has changed. There's a lot of work that goes into forgiveness.
All right, Tim Disney, thank you for that grittyly honest exposition of your life and for talking about kindness as a form of enlightened self-interest. Thank you for being part of the International Kindness Festival 2021.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.